Good afternoon, everybody who's joined us here today. My name is Ian McLeod and I'm the manager at Bookery in Melbourne, and we are a specialist provider of English learning and teaching resources. We've been doing that in Melbourne for over 30 years now, believe it or not. And I'd just like to welcome you to our webinar here today. I think it is fair to say that most public libraries that we speak to are really seeking to provide impactful services to their patrons. And hopefully our topic today is really sort of speaking to that desire in public libraries. And that topic being, do you have patrons who want to improve their day-to-day English, and how your library can support them in boosting their confidence and developing their skills, specifically using online resources. And by extension of that, how significant an impact a library can potentially have on those patrons who are seeking to improve their English. So to get things underway, I would like to introduce my colleague, Katherina, who's going to come out of the dark and maybe wave, who's a digital services specialist in the team at Bookery, and also Andrew Stokes, who is the founder and publisher at Clarity English. Andrew's a recognised international expert in the field of English language learning, and Bookery has really been very lucky to have worked with Andrew and his team for over 20 years now. So we have a really sort of deep relationship and deep respect for Andrew and the Clarity team. And Andrew's going to be sort of leading the discussion for us here today. Just on a housekeeping front, if we'll keep folks muted, feel free to pop any questions you might have into the chat box. And there'll also be a couple of breaks throughout this 30-minute session where we can answer questions, but also, you know, we can have a free-for-all conversation as well if people do have questions, because it's a relatively small session here today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Ian. Thanks, Katherina. Okay, so a little bit of introduction to our topic today. So we're talking about helping the migrant community and the wider English learning community to improve their English in a practical way in terms of their daily interactions. So as English teachers, we talk about the 4 skills: 2 productive skills, which are speaking and writing, and the 2 receptive skills, which are listening and reading. Or you can think of them as the 2 synchronous skills, so speaking and listening, which pretty much have to happen together for effective communication, and the 2 asynchronous skills, writing and reading, which can be separated in time. In fact, of course, we can still read texts that were written thousands of years ago, and there's still pretty effective communication there, or so we believe. I want to focus on reading first, because it seems to me that reading is becoming a more and more critical life skill. Obviously, as librarians and publishers, we take reading pretty much for granted, and probably don't think too much about all the different roles that it plays in our lives. So as an exercise, not now, but when you have an odd moment, as an exercise, it's interesting to think about the first few skills-based actions you take every morning. There's a flurry of reading activities in the morning, and I'm guessing that by 10 o'clock, let's say, your list will include some, or dare I say probably most of the following. So checking messages, checking the news, checking social media, checking your calendar to see what you're going to be doing today, checking emails, and of course that might be personal emails or work emails, or probably both. Checking an app, so that could be a fitness app, diet, music, podcast, according to taste. So you'll notice two things about that list. Firstly, all of them are reading activities. And secondly, they're all digital. And it only takes a moment's reflection to realize how much the internet has shifted our skills-based activities away from speaking and listening and towards reading and writing. I'll come back to that a bit later. But you'll also notice that these activities involve a variety of reading skills. So for example, when you check your music app, you're basically just scanning for the name of a song, a single item. So you're reading those words as a single item, as a single unit of meaning. Then you tap on it and that's job done. But when you're reading a news story, you're engaging with the text in a completely different way, a much more cognitive way. You're piecing the story together. You're looking for signpost words. You're looking at the tenses to locate each item in the story in time. Maybe you're guessing the meaning of a word you don't know. Even if you're a native speaker, you'll be doing that. And of course, you're bringing your own meaning, your own psychological schema to the text. So for example, if I'm reading a news story about Ukraine, I'm having a very different reading experience from someone who has, say, a family member living in Ukraine or a family connection to Ukraine. So I thought it would be interesting to focus on a few reading activities that migrants in particular, but also the wider English learning community, so obviously including students who are coming to Australia or New Zealand to learn English, the kind of thing that it's important for them to master. So I tried to do a bit of research on this. Surprisingly little research has been done, but on the shift towards reading as a dominant skill. But as you'll see, this is really a matter of common sense. So let's consider 5 reading activities. We'll look at the activity, the function that it plays, the social function it plays, and also the reading skill you require to do it effectively. Okay, firstly, and a pretty basic thing, searching for a house to rent. I did this in Australia, actually, in Melbourne and Sydney in the 1980s. And in those days, the first port of call was a real estate agent. But now you use a website. So the primary skill required has shifted from speaking and listening to reading. And the primary skill in this interaction is being able to navigate the website and to read for specific information. Okay, a second activity, participating in a group chat. For example, you might be organizing netball training for your kids, or perhaps you're organizing a social function. So the skills here are different. The first thing you have to be able to do is to read text speak, if we can call it that. You have to understand all the abbreviations and the very different grammar and vocabulary that you see on WhatsApp or equivalent. Okay, number 3, reading a food label. So let's say you're having a birthday party for your kids and you've been told that one of them is allergic to soy. So you need to have the skill to scan through the food label, looking for the word soy and ignoring everything else. So that reading skill is the skill of scanning. Then we have reading critically. So I found this skill, which I found this skill on an American reading program, and they were talking about online purchasing. So with online purchasing, it is easy to get taken advantage of financially if you don't understand each part of the ordering process in detail. And of course, a classic one, which I'm sure we've all come across, is the loyalty scheme. And you really need to be able to bring your critical faculties to bear on what you're reading. Okay, and finally, number 5, let's say you're a migrant and you've booked a flight to visit relatives back home, and you need to know what's required when you come back to Australia or New Zealand. You're going to be directed to a web page that lists all of the COVID requirements. This is really high pressure stuff, even if you're a native speaker. I've been through it a couple of times. And as you're going through it, you're really, really aware that if you make one mistake, then it's going to cost you a lot of time and money. So that skill is very different from searching for a house to rent on a website, because when you're searching for a house, you pretty much know what to expect. You're going to have vocabulary like, you know, bedrooms, fully furnished, backyard, barbecue area, etc. But when you're looking at these COVID websites, you really don't know what to expect, and it is very high stakes. So we've got 5 different social functions here and 5 different reading skills. What we can do for learners of English is to make them aware of the role of reading in these tasks and of the reading sub-skill that they need to bring to the task. And then, of course, we need to give them plenty of practice. And if they can bring the motivation to this, then this really can bring dramatic benefits to their lives. And there are 2 major benefits, I think. One is the ability to complete an important social task effectively. And the second is to build confidence. I'm sure every single one of us is well aware of how important confidence is in being able to transact these functions successfully. So I'm going to move on now to another area of language, where we can really help migrants and the wider English language community, EL community, and to develop their confidence, or primarily, let's say, by developing their confidence. And that's pronunciation or accent. Now here there is loads of research showing how important pronunciation is for migrants in particular being accepted into a new community. So let me just quickly run you through the findings from 3 studies. The first one is from the Sociological Association. It's on the effect of foreign accent on employability, so on getting a job. Pretty basic stuff. I'll just read the quote here. The results suggest that the managerial respondents actively discriminate in telephone-based job interviews against applicants speaking Chinese, Mexican, and Indian accented English. And of course, that would apply to other accents too. The second one is on career progression. This is from the Association of Psychological Science. The paper's called "Can Having a Foreign Accent Hurt Your Career?" And here's the quote: "English is increasingly considered to be the global language of business, but people who speak it as a second language are generally passed over for top managerial jobs and executive positions." And finally, one from the European Commission on the impact of foreign accent on social interaction. So not just English, but any language, immigrants in any country in the EU. They found that overall speakers with a foreign accent are judged to be less trustworthy, less educated, less intelligent, and less competent than native speakers. So pretty horrifying stuff when it comes from a mainstream organization like the European Commission. So having a clear, intelligible accent, the research shows, is very important, and migrants understand that. Let me be very clear here. I'm not suggesting that migrants should ditch their accents and sound exactly like native-born Australians or New Zealanders, and they may well see their accent as part of their identity, and that of course is to be respected. But in practical terms, migrants do need to be comfortably intelligent and comfortably intelligible. And that's the metric, comfortable intelligibility. Let's remember that for most learners of English or any language, aiming for a native speaker accent is not realistic anyway, even if they want to do it. But aiming for comfortable intelligibility really is realistic and is achievable, provided, of course, you follow a good quality program and you put in the hours of practice. Okay, so that's reading and that's pronunciation or accent. We could go on and talk about the other skills. There's lots to be said on those too, but today's focus is on reading and pronunciation. That's just, excuse me, a little bit of background. I'm delighted to hand over to Katherina now and Ian, and they're going to explain practical measures we can take to help learners of English in our communities in these two areas. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic,
Ian.
Andrew. Thank you very much. Andrew's given us some really nice examples around how reading and pronunciation can have a profound impact potentially on some of the patrons in your library. Before we sort of flip over to doing a demonstration, just wanted to ask if there were any questions from folks attending today. Happy to canvass some of those now, and we'll also have a little bit of a Q&A at the end if there's any questions then as well. You're welcome to pop them, any insights or questions you have, into the chat, or of course, you can speak up now if you so desire. Okie dokie. Well, no questions there, so we'll keep moving on. So yeah, so as I said, Andrew's sort of provided some really, I think, quite clear, meaningful examples around where language, English language competence can play a role in the successful engagement with the community for some of your patrons. And certainly one of the ways that libraries can support patrons who are wishing to improve their English language is through the provision of online resources. And I think that's become probably even more obvious to us all during the pandemic over the last couple of years. Here at Bookery, I mean, this is our sort of main bread and butter, which is working around English language learning resources. We've been representing the good folks at Clarity for over 20 years. Very glad to have been doing so. They really are the finest resources out there for libraries from our perspective. And what's driving sort of our take on that is that it's really the simplicity to use. These are amazingly simple to use, and we'll give you a very brief demonstration of that momentarily. But also the fact that the programs are very outcome focused, and we find that resonates with library patrons, the end users, in ways that other resources do not. So with all that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Katherina for a quick Clarity demonstration. Thank you, Katherina.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you, Andrew. So Clarity, I'm just going to share my screen before I keep going. Okay. So Clarity English do have a range of programs, and some of you will already probably be familiar with some of them. For example, there is Road to IELTS, but today we're here more to focus on the skills-based programs that are really designed for the general English learner, and that work really well in a library setting, such as active reading, or there is TenseBuster for grammar learning, practical writing for just general writing skills, everyday writing skills, and of course the two pronunciation programs. So today we're going to have a look at active reading and the pronunciation programs. So this is the active reading page here. And as you heard Andrew talking about earlier, reading is of course such an important skill to have, especially these days when a lot of our lives is online. We need to be able to read and understand so many different types of texts. And you'll find that in active reading, it does present a really wide range of text types and topics, and very practical and relevant to most people, I would say. And also covers a range of reading skills that Andrew mentioned as well, like scanning or skimming, finding information, and so on. You'll see this program covers all the levels from elementary all the way up to advanced. And to show you one aspect today, as an example, we'll jump into the elementary. Each level has 10 units, and you can see here a few topics like finding a home, finding a job, reading an email. So a lot of quite practical and relevant topics here, with the main skill that is being practiced below, like reading for information or scanning here in the number 10. I'm going to have a look at finding a home, because I guess it's something that all of us would have done at some point in our lives. And of course, anyone coming to Australia, whether it's a migrant or a student, will probably have to find somewhere to live at some point. In starting out, you have a nice introductory video that just talks about what I'm going to learn. So I'll just play the start of that.
Hi, what kind of home do you live in? Is it a flat or a house? How many rooms does it have? In this unit, you're going to look at different kinds of homes.
Okay. So we know what we're doing. We're looking at homes and finding a home, and then we can go to the practice zone. So we have 6 sections. The first one is going to sort of cover the essential vocabulary and then work through different exercises that get more complex. And then the last one typically is a freer kind of exercise. Let's just, for example, have a look at the first one, covering some of the essential vocabulary that we need when looking at homes and houses. It's a drag and drop exercise. So for example, you find a bed, and I can just grab this word and pop it here. I click on marking, you can see how many I got right, and you can also show the answers. So I think what's really great about active reading and all the programs actually is that it's really clearly laid out, really clear, and quite intuitive to use as well. So you probably find that your English learners or patrons probably can work through quite independently and are not going to need a lot of help. If we go to the next one, then we've got 4 advertisements that come from a real website about 4 different home options. And in this exercise, for example, we're just looking for a word or a phrase like which home has a dining room. So really just quickly scanning the text, and I can already see it here in that first advert. So I would write in that reference number here. So making use of those sort of real life situations and using real world and real life material, I think makes these activities really useful and relevant to people. So I'll skip the next ones. Essentially, we're using the same text and just going into a bit more depth. And then at the end, there's a really nice sort of freer activity where you're using some, again, real actual websites to do some research on homes, prices of homes, and even finding your dream home. So for example, if I click on the homes in Perth, it actually takes me to, I don't know if you can see that now, to realestate.com.au, where I can research those questions. So again, just really kind of relevant and practical skills and use of real kind of websites and situations that you might find yourself in. If I go back to the home of active reading, You'll also see up here, there's a progress report. If I click on that, and you can see a few different statistics, essentially how much of the program I've covered. I can compare myself to others, see how long I've spent in different units and get a score. And if I've done all the units in the elementary level, I can print myself a certificate, which could be quite satisfying. So that was active reading. And we're going to go across to pronunciation. Again, as Andrew mentioned, of course, having pronunciation, having good pronunciation is so important for a lot of reasons. And we will just play the start of this introductory video that's talking about what I am going to learn in this course.
Welcome to Clear Pronunciation. In this program, you're going to learn how to recognize and pronounce the 43 sounds of English. In other words, you'll learn how to listen out for them and how to say them.
Okay, so learning the 43 sounds of English. And here you can see some of them. Now, the best way to study these sounds is actually to study two different sounds together. As you can hear here, as you can see here, and we've got the consonants and then the same kind of exercise for vowels and diphthongs as well. I thought I'd jump into this one, the W and the V. When I first came to Australia, that was a sound, the two sounds, for example, that I found a bit challenging to differentiate and pronounce, coming from Germany. So we just get to know the sounds in the first section. You know, what are these sounds? What do they sound like? And we can have a look at how is the sound made. So really useful stuff, especially if it's a sound that doesn't exist in your language, or you know, or it might exist but in a different way. And then here you can hear the sound in a word.
Wait.
And then record yourself practicing that same word and that same sound and compare yourself to the other person. So really kind of useful practical exercise here as well. And then we go through like practicing recognizing the sound in words and sentences, as for example in this one.
There's a shop in Melbourne where you can buy whales.
And I have to distinguish, you know, did he say whales or veils? And today I think I can distinguish, which is good. So I won't go through everything, but you can, sorry, just to go back again, we can do the marking and show the answers as you saw before. So I'll leave that and go back. So Clear Pronunciation 1 really helps the learner to become familiar with these sounds that, as I said, may not exist in their native language or that may be different in their native language. Like, for example, for me with the W and the V. Now, in Clear Pronunciation 2, we're actually now putting all those sounds together in speech. And I'm just, again, going to very quickly play the start of this introductory video for you.
There are lots of reasons to want to improve your pronunciation. The most obvious is that good pronunciation will make it easier for people to understand what you're saying.
That makes a lot of sense. So if we jump into the course, you can see it's a bit of a, like the next level. And in fact, I didn't say before, the Clear Pronunciation 1 is really great, probably more for the lower level learners. Although some of us, even at higher levels, can still benefit from it. And this one is really great, probably from intermediate level upwards. We're looking at things like consonant clusters, connected speech, and intonation. So we'll have a look at the first one. So just looking at consonant clusters and consonant sounds. And we're finding out, you know, what are these, what consonant sounds, what are we talking about here? And I can listen to them and I'll be able to
miss,
practice them again here and record myself there. In another exercise, then I need to hear the consonant sounds in words. So again, we're progressing our skill.
window, father, reply,
And I need to select the word that does not contain a consonant cluster, which I'm going to say is this one. And I was right. And show the answers again as usual as well. The last one again is sort of a bit of a freer exercise in that here we're listening to an interview and answer some questions that are actually, first recognizing the words, which of course contain consonants and consonant clusters. And then we can also use the questions to talk about our own life. So we've learned the sounds and we've become familiar with them, and now we can practice recognizing them in the speech of others. And hopefully then, you know, it will really help us with our pronunciation and our confidence in talking to our English-speaking friends or presenting at a job interview, for instance, and know that we're going to be understood and that we're confident we can understand others clearly as well. So that was a very quick run through 3 different programs. So just to also say that we've been sort of looking at the benefits for the English learner of these programs, that it's, you know, they're easy to use and well laid out, very clear. Also, Clarity offer a lot of support for you, the administrator of the programs, the librarians, for example. There's a great range of support materials that some of you may already know. They're on Clarity's website, clarityenglish.com. If you go to the individual program, so let's, for instance, use Clear Pronunciation 2 and scroll down, you'll find there's usually a syllabus and various other bits and pieces. And then here are the support materials that you can download for free and use, such as web banners, the social media tiles, sample newsletter that you're welcome to use, and a poster, and various other bits and pieces. And Clarity is also really happy to customize any material for you. For example, if you would like your logo added to anything, they'd be more than happy to do that for you. So just get in touch with them directly or with us at Bookery, and we can organize that for you. Thank you for listening. So that's the end of our demonstration section, and I will hand back to Ian.
Yes, hello, I'm back. Thank you very much, Katherina. That was fantastic. Certainly, from the Bookery perspective, I can add to that that one of the things that sets Clarity apart is that support side of things. They are a nimble and very responsive publisher who provide first-class customer service, which makes our job in working with them in this region a real joy. So that's a real standout on that customer service front as well. So really sort of coming to the end of our session here today, just want to ask if there were any wrap-up questions for Andrew or Katherina, or if maybe folks wanted to share any thoughts or insight around the products. I've got a question here in the chat from Alison. Why are there different channels for intro videos? And I believe, and I'm just wondering whether, Andrew, did you want to speak to that?
I'm not really a technical expert, but I can tell you my understanding is that is to optimize the video, and that different channels work better, and whether it's Vimeo or AWS or whatever, to optimize the experience for the learners. They can, when they first go in, if they have any problem with the streaming, they can choose a different channel, and then that'll be saved as their default channel. I believe that actually what the technical team is doing is automating that. So at the moment it's an option, but I think it's in the process of being automated. Anyway, but the point of it is to ensure that they get the best possible streaming experience.
Very observant, Alison. But yeah, good question. Is there anyone else? I'd like to, I think the microphone channels are open if people wanted to throw any questions in or any comments. No? Okay. Just looking there. All good. Well, I guess just in wrapping up, I really would like to thank Andrew, fantastic, and Katherina, thank you very much as well. And thank you to everyone who attended here today. Of course, please feel free to contact the Bookery team at any time with any questions you might have around English language learning, and specifically around the Clarity English resources. We're always happy to demonstrate them, show you how great they work on a mobile device, for example, all those type of things. We're really here to assist with those type of queries that you might have. And yeah, only a phone call or a Zoom away, of course. So just in wrapping up, once again, thank you. Thank you to Andrew and Katherina, and to everyone, please enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.